a frigid night makes way for a sun-kissed winter morning, we are here today to attend the much-awaited international conference on gender mainstreaming in politics, administration, and development in South Asia and beyond, organized jointly by the Public Policy and Governance Program of North-South University and Department of Administration and Development, University of Bergen, Norway. Esteemed chief guest, respected luminaries, cherished faculty members, honorable speakers, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. On behalf of the Public Policy and Governance Program of North-South University, I, Shahreen Amin, would like to extend my warm welcome to all our guests present here today. On this occasion, I would like to invite the guests of honor to take their reserved seats on the stage. It is an honor for me to introduce the guests at our main table. We have convener of the conference, Professor Dr. Ishtiaq Jamil, and our keynote speaker for the conference, Professor Ragnhild Louise Murios from the University of Bergen, Norway. We have, as our guest of honor, Ambassador of Norway, H.E. Setzel Blekken, Professor Dr. Shudha Tripathi, Rector, Tribhuvan University of Nepal, and Mr. Mohammad Shah Jahan, Chairman Board of Trustees of North-South University. Our chief guest for the program is Ms. Ismat Ara Sadiq, MP, Honorable Minister of the State, Ministry of Public Administration, Government of Bangladesh. Today's seminar will be chaired by the Honorable Vice Chancellor of North-South University, Professor Atikul Islam. First and foremost, I would like to thank everyone in this hall and appreciate you taking off your busy schedule and joining us today. We have about 100 renowned academic and professionals as discussants, participants, paper presenters, and moderators joining this conference, and they have all come together to discuss the issue of gender mainstreaming in the sectors of administration, development, and politics in South Asia and around the world. And we hope to be able to conclude certain agendas in the conference today for the region at large. To start with, may I request co-convener of the conference, Dr. S.K. Tawfiq M. Haq, Professor and Director of the Public Policy and Governance Program of North-South University, to deliver his welcome note.
Respected Chief Guest, Mrs. Ismat Ara Sadiq, MP, Minister of State, Ministry of Public Administration, Government of Bangladesh, Dr. Ishtiaq Jamil, Convener of the International Conference, Guest of Honors, Her Excellency Ms. Setzel Blekken, Ambassador of Norway, Professor Ms. Shudha Tripathi, Rector, Tribhuvan University of Nepal, Mr. Mohammad Shah Jahan, Chairman, Board of Trustees, North-South University, Keynote speaker, Professor Ragnhild Louise Murios, University of Bergen, Norway, and also the present deans, faculty members, participants, and paper presenters from Bangladesh and abroad, and also the other distinguished guests and students. Assalamu alaikum, and very good morning to you all. Public Policy and Governance Program has been designed in active collaboration with the leading European university, University of Bergen, Norway, and North-South University, Bangladesh. The other partners of the program are University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka, Tribhuvan University of Nepal, Royal University of Bhutan. The beginning of the program dates back in 2008 with a vision to become a leading academic and research institute in policy and governance studies in Bangladesh and South Asia. PPG program is offering a thesis-based international master degree program on public policy and governance for the professionals, mostly from the civil service and young academic professionals of Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Bhutan. MPPG, the unique master degree program in South Asia, aims to producing competent, qualified, and responsive workforce to identify, diagnose, and address governance challenges in South Asia. This is the second international conference of the PPG program, which has been jointly organized with the Department of Administration and Organization Theory of University of Bergen, Norway. We have received overwhelming response from home and abroad surrounding this international conference. 80 research papers have been submitted by the gender experts and scholars from different countries of Asia, Africa, and Europe. We are also going to have a PhD workshop on third day, 20th of November, where 9 PhD students from Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Norway will present the findings of their dissertation. Probably this is the first PhD workshop been organized with an international conference in Bangladesh. So we are very happy and proud to have these different PhD students from different countries here. The rationale of holding this international conference on gender derived from two perspectives. Firstly, despite social developments and positive economic growth, gender disparity and discrimination are widespread in developing countries, and in South Asia is no exception to this trend. Secondly, a consequence of this is the limited participation and representation of women in politics, administrative process, and development. In order to put more focus on these issues and generate discussion, the international conference aims to bring together academics and practitioners who are studying and advocating for gender mainstreaming in South Asia and beyond. Just to add with this, because of the nature of the program, PPG is having a very close collaboration with the different government ministries. So we have a formal MOU with Ministry of Women and Children Affairs of Bangladesh government, under which we also organize several national gender seminars in the last 3-4 years. So the Public Policy and Governance Program of North-South University has ever since its foundation dedicated itself to generate knowledge on various policy issues, discourses, and practices in broader and bigger platform. Apart from the academic program, it also has been successful in launching international publications and also having regional collaboration for research and publications. This has created a niche for PPG for research and publication in policy and governance related issues. As an output of this international conference, we are also going to have an edited book to be published by Palgrave Macmillan and one special issue of South Asian Journal of Policy and Governance with few selected papers. I would like to give special thanks to University of Bergen for a long-standing and solid partnership in almost last 10 years, and Norwegian Development Agency NORAD for their assistance. Today we also have our academic partners from Tribhuvan University, Nepal, and Peradina University, Sri Lanka within us, who are also an active partner of PPG program for a long time. I thank them also for their continuous support. Before concluding, I just want to give some practical information. I am pleased to inform you that there is a live streaming going on this inaugural session via PPG Facebook, YouTube, and through the NSU website. A number of our Nepalese, Sri Lankan, and Bhutanese students are now in their home country for writing their thesis. Another group of Bangladeshi, Nepalese, and Sri Lankan students are now in Norway to complete their one semester there. I am sure many of our current students, our alumni in different South Asian countries, academic and research colleagues are watching this program online. We also developed a conference apps, PPG Conf, for the first time in NSU, along with the conference website to assist our national and international participants in coming 3 days. Please download these apps at your smartphone to get all the updated information about the conference. I'm going to conclude my welcome speech here with the belief that this 3-day conference will be no different than the previous ones in terms of quality and lively discussion and debates, and will also prove to be a success in terms of publishing edited books, scientific journal articles at the impact factor journals as an end product of it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking address sets a perfect platform for our paper presenters and discussants here today. May I now request Professor Abdul Rab Khan, Dean, School of Humanities and Social Sciences of North-South University, to kindly deliver his speech.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Chair of the inaugural session of the International Conference on Gender Mainstreaming, Professor Atikul Islam, Vice Chancellor, North-South University. Chief guest of this session, Ms. Ismatara Sadiq, Honorable Minister of State for Public Administration, Government of Bangladesh. Keynote speaker, Professor Rangfrid Louise Maurice, University of Bergen. Her Excellency Sitchell Blinken, Ambassador of Norway to Bangladesh. Chief guest of honor, Professor Sudha Tripathi, Rector, Tribhuvan University, Nepal. Guest of honor, Mr. Mohammed Shahjahan, Chair of the Board of Trustees of North-South University. Distinguished convener and co-convener of this program. Faculty colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to all of you. It is my privilege to welcome you all to this international conference on gender mainstreaming organized by the Public Policy Program of North-South University under the Department of Political Science and Sociology. This is a very timely initiative, as many things are going on at the global stage as well as regional, national stage regarding gender. I think this policy discourse, as PPG has also organized in the past, will take the movement, women's movement, and the cause of promoting gender mainstreaming to further level. And at the moment, particularly in the global level, so many initiatives, including globalization, including SEDAW movements, and also other movements that have been taken place in the past decade, like WID, WIP, the cause of women's, particularly their participation, their involvement in the economic activity, in the social life and political sphere, has been taken further. The cause of globalization has, in fact, in terms of employment, in terms of their women's participation, has also increased further. But at the same time, the point that I also need to highlight is, if you have observed, that globalization process, which has expanded employment opportunities, their involvement also has created some kind of, you can say, glass ceiling, or you can say some kind of compartmentalization of women's participation in all spheres of life. Because we know that mainstreaming is a very long-term process. It's a tedious and very difficult process. It's a question of changing the mindset. It's integral, making women and men as integral part of the whole policy and development process. So that takes a lot of time. But the thing that I need to flag here is that there are certain activities, like, say, service industry, promotional activities, tourism, things like that, where women's role is typed, stereotyped, even in the Silicon Valley, for example, where the type of jobs the women are doing is very low-end value jobs they are doing. So this is something that probably is creating a glass ceiling. Of course, there are instances of that the women are also breaking the glass ceiling, but these are more episodic rather than being part of a mainstream policy. So this is one big challenge in terms of the question of mainstreaming of gender in areas, countries like us. The second issue I need to highlight is, which is not question as such a mindset, but of something of a technological factor. Because of globalization, because of expanded market opportunities, there has been expanded employment opportunities for women in countries like ours, in terms of the garment industry and other, low-end value industries. But the biggest challenge that we're going to face in the coming days is the upscaling of the skills of these. There are 4 million women in this country who are employed. But the question of upscaling their skill and being part of the mainstream, I think that remains a big challenge for bringing them in the mainstream job, because otherwise they will be outdated and they will be left out of job. So there are the points that I wanted to say. There are many challenges in the face of this mainstreaming them in the question of developmental process in terms of job. And of course, if we talk about power and politics, of course, we're very happy that in South Asia particularly, there has been, significant progress in terms of women participation in the process of political process, even women occupying the highest position. But I will be a little bit naughty here to just point it out that when women, goes up to the ladder of power, what happens that they tend to use more masculine power rather than soft power of gender. So that is also kind of, we need to, consider that as a kind of, not a big challenge, but that depends on how individual discretion. With this, I wish this seminar a success. We have significant, as Professor Tawfiq was telling, significant attendance from home and abroad. I wish them a success and also rewarding experience at North-South University. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your remarkable speech. And may I please again remind you that this program is going live in our YouTube channel, NSU website, and Facebook. Moving right along, it is now my pleasure to request convener of the conference, Dr. Ishtiaq Jamil from University of Bergen, Norway, to kindly deliver a speech for us.
Honorable Chief Guest, Ismat Tara Sadiq, MP and Minister of State, Ministry of Public Administration, Government of Bangladesh, the keynote speaker, my colleague at the University of Bergen, Professor Rangil Murios, Honorable Chairman, Board of Trustees, North-South University, Mr. Mohammad Shahjahan, Honorable Vice Chancellor of North-South University, Professor Atiq Islam, Our Excellency, the Ambassador of Norway, Sitsel Bleken, Honorable Rector of Tribhuvan University, Sudha Tripathi, distinguished participants, my friends, dear colleagues, Assalamu alaikum, and a very good morning. First of all, I would like to welcome our participants, and some of them have traveled a long distance to be here. A very warm welcome to all, and I hope that you'll find the conference a very useful platform for discussions, deliberation, and discourse, and to build networks and research collaborations. And I wish you all a wonderful and pleasant stay in Dhaka and in Bangladesh. The conference is a result of a decade-long collaboration among 4 academic institutions in 4 countries, 3 in South Asia, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, and 1 in Norway. These are Tribhuvan University, North-South University, University of Peradeniya, and the University of Bergen in Norway. The objective of this collaboration, which started in 2007, in fact, was to build and strengthen institutional capacity in higher educational institutions in South Asia on 3 essential elements of any university, and these are education, research, and dissemination. In 2017, after a decade, we can proudly say that our collaboration has not only flourished and fruitful along North-South axis, but also along South-South axis, providing opportunities to scholars, academics, and students in this region to contribute to, as well as get benefits from research-based education and dissemination. And in this decade of collaboration, we obtained 4 research grants, projects, all financed by the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation, NORAD, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Education of Norway. So we are actually very, very thankful and appreciate the generous support that we got from the government of Norway. Our collaborative efforts have led to the establishment of the Master in Public Policy and Governance program at North-South University, and a number of students, mostly belonging to the civil service, civil society, and the academia in these countries have graduated. And there is still a number of students in the pipeline. We've also established a PhD program in Tribhuvan University, where 3 Nepalese students have already completed PhDs, and we have 8 PhDs from Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka who have submitted their dissertations. or yet to submit their dissertation. In addition, we have established postdoc fellowships in these 3 institutions. In terms of research and dissemination, we have published a number of books from international publishing houses, special editions of international scientific journals, and produced a number of reports and policy briefs. We're also editing and publishing a scientific journal called the South Asian Journal of Public Policy and Governance, which is a bi-yearly journal, and so far we have published 10 volumes. And in the beginning of next year, we are publishing an edited book on public administration and civil service systems in South Asia. Gender mainstreaming has always been an important ingredient in our joint collaboration, and this issue has been well reflected and well represented in our research, in dissemination, in recruitment of master and doctoral students, as well as encouraging selection of master and doctoral dissertations on gender issues. There are huge challenges in gender mainstreaming in South Asia. We hear all the time of glass ceiling syndrome, the challenge of women's empowerment, socio-cultural barriers that impede inclusion and participation in balancing work life. According to the Global Gender Gap Index report of 2017, produced by the World Economic Forum, mapping gender disparity across the globe, South Asia is the second lowest scoring region in this year's report, ahead only of Middle East and North Africa, but behind Sub-Saharan Africa. However, in the context of South Asia, Bangladesh has topped the South Asian countries in gender parity and equality for the 3rd consecutive year, ranking 47th among 144 nations. So this is very encouraging. Worldwide, the Nordic countries are at the top. Despite such challenges and global disparity, the South Asian women have surged forward in terms of better education, better health, as a result of which life expectancy has increased in South Asia. South Asia is now wealthier and healthier than before, and one of the major reasons is because of women's advancement. Thanks to a number of affirmative policies by the government and active engagement of civil society that have facilitated women's advancement, but there is still a long way to go. And this conference, of course, sets the stage for discussions and deliberations along some of these issues. We're very happy with all the responses that we have received from participants in the conference. We have received around 80 abstracts, as told before, equally distributed along gender, so this conference has at least ensured gender parity. I was actively involved in the review process of some of these abstracts. I was amazed by the diversity of issues that these abstracts focus, ranging on transgender inclusion in society, honor killing in South Asia, women's migration within the country as well as cross-country migration, implementation of inheritance policy, and the plight of Rohingya women and their life as refugees. Very interesting topics, and I'm impressed with the richness of the abstracts. I haven't had the opportunity to read the full papers yet, which I will do so as we review papers for inclusion in different publications, at least in a book on the main theme of the conference, as well as in scientific journals. We're already in dialogue with an American publisher, and they have showed interest to publish at least a volume on the basis of the papers presented in this conference. Well, the beginning has been encouraging with solid and interesting abstracts, and the rest depends on these 2 days of conference, which is organized in 4 parallel sessions. So these parallel sessions are the role of gender in policy and administrative process, 2, gender and practice of sustainable development, 3, gender and political values, 4, institutionalism and gender, process, practice, and values. But behind all successes of institutions and events, there are people who work relentlessly to make things happen. In this case too, and I cannot leave this podium without mentioning the names of few. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Mahfuzul Haq, Adjunct Faculty of Policy and Governance, Studies Program of NSU, the person you may have contacted or communicated the most, and his team of young and energetic people, Dr. Shakil Ahmed, Sajjad Naeem, Mahfuza Siddiqa, Mainul Khan, and Akram Hussain. This is a very small team indeed, but has been very efficient and effective, and responsible from A to Z of this conference. They deserve a big applause. I also would like to thank Policy and Governance Studies Program Management team at Tribhuvan University, led by Professor Teknath Dhakal, at North South University by Professor Tawfiq Haq and Professor Salahuddin, and at University of Peradeniya by Professor Upul Aberatna. They have been instrumental in team building and contributing to the joint collaborative research programs. My heartfelt gratitude to the leadership of these institutions who have been very supportive and helpful, and I sincerely hope that this positive gesture will continue in future as well. I would like to thank the 6th batch students of Master in Public Policy and Governance for their help in this conference, and thanks to the energetic and young volunteers who would be assisting us during the conference. I'm sure we'll be needing the assistance in finding the venues, a bit tricky one. Finally, I would like to thank our distinguished and honorable guests at the dais for accepting our invitation to join this session of this conference. Special thanks to my colleague, Professor Ranglin Murius, for accepting the invitation to be the keynote speaker. Well, there's a long list of people whom I should thank individually, but the time does not permit me. My sincere apology to them, and I thank them all. So let me end here, and thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you, sir, for your much inspirational and motivational speech. And we extend our gratitude to the University of Bergen, Norway, for their continued support and collaboration. Our next speaker has traveled the world, empowering many audiences with her anecdote and insights on women's participation and empowerment. She focused her work on comparative politics within the fields of women's representation, political recruitment, political decentralization, and group recognition in the Global South. Her key research interest is explaining variation in the inclusionary aspects of African regimes. An exemplary academic, she has extensive field experience from Malawi, South Africa, Uganda, and Zambia. A renowned political scientist and a remarkable academic, please give a warm welcome to Professor Ragnhild Louise Murias from Bergen, Norway, keynote speaker of the conference.
Honorable Minister of State, Honorable Minister of State, Ambassador of Norway, the Dean of Humanities and Social Sciences, professors, PhD students, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for the invitation to come here today and speak about a topic that I really find interesting, and I'm so happy to be here, and also a bit nerve-wracking to be here as well. So I really hope that so I really hope that you will find this presentation interesting. So the topic that I'm going to talk about today is gendered electoral financing. Does money talk? And this topic that I'm talking about today is from a research project that I'm leading on gender electoral financing. And we have, and as the introduction said, that in our research group and also in my previous research, we've done research on African countries and also on European countries. And what we have seen is that when it comes to including women in politics, that there are actually some kind of challenges that we can see go through the world and are not really typical to any country, but it's actually global problems. And so I also think that this is something that is interesting for you as experts on South Asia and other parts of Asia. So what I would focusing on, or can start on, is that we can see two global trends for the moment. First, there is this increased focus on increasing the number of women in elected offices. And we can see that this is global and all over the world. And actually, when you look at the SDG goals, or Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, women in leadership is the 5th goal. And there has been some important steps taken within this field, that we can see that in 2000 there were only women composed of 13% of the national legislatures in the world, and we can see that today there's been a high change, going up to women composing 23% of seats in national parliaments. And so there is a change, and this change is global. And the reason why, one of the key reasons why we've seen such a change is because of states or governments adopting different kinds of gender quotas. So in 39% of the world, you actually have gender quotas for national legislatures. And we can see that the trend is going upward in different parts of the world. So if we look at the different state regions, or the regions of the world, you can see that there has been an increase. But we can see that the slope is kind of heading higher in some regions than others. And we can see that although in Asia, where there was kind of a higher percentage, a world percentage in 1997, the slope is kind of not as steep as in countries like the countries in sub-Saharan Africa and in Europe and also in the Arab states. But there is an increase. So why are we talking about this? Why is this important? Why are we actually saying that? Why does it matter that there are more or less women in national parliaments or in elected offices? Well, this global trend and the focus on increasing the number of women in politics is kind of motivated by a certain kind of theory. And this theory is that gender equality has repercussions for market-led growth. So if you have gender equality, increased gender equality, it would also have positive effects on economic development. And how is that? Well, it's kind of connected to if some groups in the societies are discriminated against and they are not actually able to fulfill their roles as workers, as parents, and as citizens. This has repercussions for economic growth. As for instance, if you are, I can take the example of child marriage, which prevails in some cultures. That's had really negative effects on girls' attendance at school. If you are married, you don't go to school. It's also if you have pregnancies at an early age, that can actually damage your body, so you're actually not able to, for a long time, so you're not able to actually go into the work to have a job and be as effective as a worker. So this is some of the reasons why even the UN, not just the UN, but also other institutions are really saying that it's really important to have gender equality for market-led growth. But how is this then connected to politics and having women in politics? And I think that this quote is really kind of capturing the reason why we should have gender mainstreaming in general, but also in politics. And this is, so I'm going to read this, and I'm going to ask you who you think said this in 2006. Because what this person said was that the recruitment of women has got nothing to do with crude political calculation or crazy political correctiveness. That's not what this is about. If you put 8 conservative men round a table and ask them to discuss what should be done about pensions, you get some good answers. But what you are less likely to get is a powerful insight into the massive unfairness relating to women's pensions. We need people from diverse backgrounds to inform everything we do. And these kinds of ideas is actually what is connecting, the experience of not being able to fulfill, your potential in the area of work and in school, connect this to elected political offices. Because you need people with different kinds of experiences to actually be able to tell, the difference, what is actually the challenges of pensions when it comes to women. So who said this? Who do you think said this? Yeah? Iris Marion Young. Yeah, it could be this. This is really something that she could say, the professor up there. Oh, you know that. Okay, so he knew the answer. It is actually David Cameron, the former Prime Minister from the Conservative Party in the UK. And he said this in 2006, and I think this is an example of how mainstream these kinds of idea has gotten. You know, so it's something, it's not just something that you would say. Most people would say this could be kind of Hillary Clinton, or it could be the UN or something like that, but it's also like the David Cameron. And this is getting to the core of why, you know, this increase of number of women in politics is really on the international agenda. But still, even though I've said that there's been extreme changes and that you could see that, you know, we have on global scale, there's 28% of women in politics in elected national assemblies, you can still have the experiences like this, that when I was earlier this year in meeting local councillors in Malawi and Chihuahua, the only woman present there was me and my colleague Asiate Chivesa, and the rest of them were male. And also, if you only have, you know, 30% women or 28% women, it means that you have 70% men, or maybe 72% men. So, you know, so there are still some land, so there's still not gender parity. But I was talking about the other trend that is also very important that I'm going to talk about today, and is the main focus of my presentation. And that is, at the same time as we can see that there are these efforts to increase the number of women in politics and to have gender parity in political recruitment, elections are becoming increasingly more expensive. And this is particularly so in what we call candidate-centered electoral systems, like the first past the post electoral system. And why this is that particularly because you have to compete twice. First, you have to, if you want to be a member of the parliament, first you have to compete in primaries or in the political parties to win the party nomination. So you are going through a competition with your fellow party members to actually become nominated as the candidate of a political party. And after that, there is the process of winning the elections. So there's like a two stages that you have to compete. And so we can see here that first past the post is typically in Southeast Asia, some countries in Africa, and also in North America. And we can see that this kind of processes is really driving up the cost of the elections. So you probably have seen, you know, first there are these races, and you can see it massively, for instance, in the United States, how much money that is going into elections these days. And especially in those kinds of elections where you have one candidate that is promoted, and where it's even almost more about the candidate, him or herself, than it's about the party label. So we've had a workshop in Bergen for some weeks ago, and we've had scholars who has been doing interviews in different countries, in Ghana, Zambia, Malawi, and the UK, and also in France. And what was really interesting was to see the similarities of the experiences that candidates had faced when they wanted to get a nomination from a political parties. And especially in these countries where you have first past the post elections, you could really see that it was really expensive to just become a candidate for a political party. So what you needed to do was, first of all, you had to facilitate your supporters. So you have to, you know, in order to come here, it's nice to be, you know, having an entourage, you know. It's kind of impressive if I have a lot of people following me. So it needs to move around with a lot of supporters. You have to give them food, you have to give them transport, and sometimes even like a token, like a small gift, so you have to give to them. And then you also sometimes have to give gifts to the delegates. Sometimes that can be almost like look like corruption, and sometimes you can't really hand out money like that. There could be rules against that, but some places you can actually do it. But at least you could give them, you know, something to eat, something. But even in Ghana, they had this tradition of starting to give delegates cell phones. So they actually gave them iPhones and smartphones to be able to be the most popular person in a party. So you kind of have to show that you are willing to share what you have. And this can be really expensive. And this happened even before you're nominated as the candidate. And you also have to facilitate yourself, which means that sometimes you have to, most politicians would have to take time off work. So if you are employed somewhere, you actually have to take a leave from your work. Some places you actually have to buy a house. If you want to be a candidate that is going to be accepted as coming from a certain constituency, you have to have a house there or reside there. So if you have moved, for instance, into London and you live there with your family, but you want to go back to your constituency where your family is from, or for some reason, maybe it's impossible to compete in where you're from because there is an incumbent who has been elected for 3 times and he's so popular, you can never have an ambition of winning that seat or kind of winning that nomination for that constituency within your party. You need to find a different constituency than where you live. And then sometimes you even have to buy a house. And still, even though you spend all this money into your political career in order to be elected, the outcome is still unsecure. So sometimes I hear this story when I was in Malawi, that some were led to think that they were really a popular candidate. So people would say, oh, we want you to be the candidate of a party that is really popular here. Could you please come and compete? And we will, you know, please, because you're so fantastic. And then you start to spend money on the campaign. And you start to, you know, give food, bring supporters around. And then at the end of the day, when you're standing there and you have this, you know, when it's going to be decided who is going to win the nomination, no one is lining up behind your back. Everybody is going to somewhere else. And then you realize that actually there's been things happen, but it could also be that someone are actually saying that you should compete in order to spend money on the campaigns and for the political party members. And the process is not that transparent. And I think that one of the key things when we're talking about gender and also to have more equal to allow different groups to become politicians, I think that having a process that is really transparent is a key thing. And of course, then there's the cost in competing in elections, but at this level, some parties would support the candidates more. So it's not so. It can depend on the country and the context. So what I'm giving examples of here is the really high levels of costs that you need to cover when you want to be a candidate in a political party. And this would probably be the same for men and women. But then we're getting to the tricky thing here. And then it's the political culture that we live in. Because we can see that there is a real gender gap in getting access to funds. So although, you know, so when costs are a bit driven up, we can see that for women it's more difficult to compete in these elections because it's so difficult to get access to funds. First of all, most women start off with less own resources, and that they have less access to even their family's wealth. So in a lot of countries where you don't have political rights or family law that actually give the right for women to own their own property and own land, it's very difficult to see how they can actually emerge into becoming political candidates. Because then you have to depend on the altruism of the males in your family in order to run. So what we say about, for instance, in Sudan, you are able to run as you have the political right to run as a president, but you have to ask your husband or father or to actually be allowed to run. And then it's also another issue that is very difficult for women to get access to networks that have resources. And this is where we can see that there is a big difference between men and women. Because women will, first of all, it's an education issue. So if you have education, you are connected to networks with money, and it will be more easy for you to ask for money. But what we've seen, and that the studies of Gender Bauer and Akusa Dakwa have seen, and also other studies, that it's very difficult for women to access fund and do fundraising, in some cultures. And this is because you expect something in return. So I was told by a Ukrainian politician that she was told by a political party to go out there and do fundraising to get money to her party to run in an election. And then when she went out there and asked, you know, can I get money for my campaign, people took that in the way that she was, you know, that then she had to return for something, give a return in a special way. So it's very difficult sometimes for women to go out there and ask. Sometimes, you know, it can be just a joke, but we know that sometimes it's a joke with something attached. It's a stigma attached, and it's gender stereotyping, and it makes it very difficult for women to go out there and get money. And so research on the effects of gender poverty have shown that Richard Matlin did a study, and he identified access to resources as the most essential condition for explaining variation in women's descriptive representation in developing countries. That actually this lack of fund, either especially because of the family laws, that you don't really have access even to property, can make it difficult for women to run, especially in places where you have less resources. But Rainbow Murray has said that actually this kind of lack of resources is frequently regarded as some of the barriers preventing women from entering politics everywhere. So this is actually just not in some parts of the world, in the global south, but also in countries like the UK and United States. So what we're looking into our project is, so if we've built that money is a barrier for women, could it also be the solution? And we have seen that throughout the world now, these different kinds of initiatives are popping up of giving fund to women or political parties to actually enable women to be more equipped to run for a seat in a national legislature. And general electoral financing, we have defined that as intervention using finances as a remedy to promote gender balance in political office. And this is what I'm going to concentrate my last part of the lecture on. And we have seen that finance are used as incentives to change behavior. So the idea is here that you should use finances to change the behavior. First of all, you have those interventions that wants to change parties' likelihood of nominating women. So you're actually addressing the parties and you want to change in the political parties, and that's your goal. Or you can change women's ambition. So you have different kinds of initiatives that are really targeting women to increase their, equip them with funds so they will be able to run in an election, and by that kind of doing something and changing their ambition to become politicians. So I'm just going to first go through the kind of how you can incentivizing political parties, or how this is done in several countries. And this is very interesting because there's actually been parties or governments doing this for quite a long time, but the research on this is still very scarce. There's done really little research on this. There's more on sanctions of political parties than actually this kind of incentivizing women. So sanctions parties to make them comply with a gender balance criteria. So you can actually have laws that will sanction parties to make them comply. And you have two kinds of sanctions that are adopted as legislation in different countries. First, we can see that there is financial punishment of political parties that do not apply to a certain gender balance. This means that if you have party funding or official party funding, there is a financial punishment that could be everything from a cut of 30% to almost 100% of party funding if you do not have a gender balance on your party tickets. But there is also another kind of incentivizing party, and that is if you do this, you know, if you have a certain balance on your party ticket and you nominate a certain numbers of women and men, you can have a financial reward. So political parties will be given money or more funding if they actually comply with gender balance issues. So I'm just going to give you 2 examples of this kind of sanctions. And in Ireland, as well as in France, for instance, they have what is known as a punishment. And in Ireland, you would actually you have a 30% quota, and they said that parties have to adopt candidates. 30% needs to be women. And if they don't do that, they will lose half of the state fund. So they will actually lose parties will lose money if they don't comply with this. And it's candidates on the list, and it's not elected members in the parliament. And in Ukraine, they have something different. They have this reward mechanism. So there's a 30% benchmark. Parties need to have 30% of women on, at least 30% of women on the candidate list. And if they do this, they will get earmarked funding. There's this kind of a fixed number of money, and the parties can compete to get as much as they can from that. The problem with this is that you can have it like a fixed number, so each party that do this can get a certain reward. Or you could do like they do in Ukraine, where you have, let's say, $1 million then that is set to this purpose, and then the different parties will have to share, that is able to reach this benchmark will have to share. So the problem of this kind of reward mechanism is that it tends to be quite symbolic, and actually that parties doesn't necessarily use this, and that there are not laws that actually says anything about how much money this should be. So the challenges of these kinds of incentives is that public funding really needs to work. If you are using public funding as a way to change parties and how they behave and their actions, you need to have public funding, and it needs to be substantial. If you can actually have other resources are more important for you in your campaign, this little extra money you can give through the public funds are not necessarily important for the parties. And you also have sanctions. They have to hit where decisions are made. So if you're giving these sanctions, it will be mainly felt at the national level of the political party. But as Cole Kittleson have said, you know, if you have decentralized party structures and the decisions are taken at the subnational level or the local branches, you know, how are they going to be hit by these kinds of initiatives? And then it's also this, that those who are complying are smaller parties and new parties. But still, the most important thing is that parties are machines designed to win seats. So if you have this, what does it matter if you don't get access to those small funds as long as you win a seat in the parliament? And as many seats you get, you will be able to become the government, and then these small funds doesn't really matter that much. So that's the problem with these kind of initiatives. And then you have these incentives targeted directly to women. And in different countries, so this is a different kind of scheme where you are really targeting the women themselves, and you want to make them more equipped to run in an election. And initiatives that we have seen is reducing filing fees either in the political parties or from the Electoral Law Commission, so that women doesn't necessarily have to pay to be registered as a candidate. You can see that there are cash handouts. Women are getting money to do their campaigns. They can be buying of airtime and press coverage, that some are funding women's airtime, and also funding of campaign material. But what we've seen with this funding of campaign material is that sometimes you could give money for the women to have their own posters and their own T-shirts, but sometimes you would do that and with the fundraiser's name on it. So it's more like those women are doing the kind of being commercializing the brand of those who are sponsoring the campaigns instead of actually sponsoring their own campaigns or kind of showing their own campaigns. So, so we have different kinds of campaign cost relief for women initiatives that have been tried out. And what I've been studying quite a lot is the campaign in Malawi, where you had in what is known as the 50-50 campaign in 2009 and 2014. And this is funded by donors and the government. And what they have done is to give cash and training to women and also sponsor campaign material for women candidates to go out and win the elections. And in 2009, they targeted women aspirants, and they said that all women who want to run for a seat, you will get some extra funding. And then they realized that that was a bit problematic because, the political party started to wonder why the government would sponsor women who wanted to run on an opposition ticket. So there was some problems with that. And also that some women came up and said, oh, we want to run for an election. And we want to run for an election. And then in the end, they didn't turn up as they just wanted to, they just said that, but they didn't end up as candidates or wanting to have, they just kind of somehow wanted access to that money. But there was also a workshop addressed towards chiefs, traditional leaders, journalists, and party leaders. And then in Ghana, they tried something else, and then there was the reduced filing fees for women in parties. But what they did was that it was a kind of a rebute mechanism. So first the women had to go there and ask, and give money, as the other candidates, and pay those filing fees. And then they had to go and ask afterwards, can I get those back? Because I'm a woman and I didn't really have to pay them. And, and that opens for these mechanisms that I talked about earlier. So, you have to go and ask again to get the money back. And that kind of led to kind of interesting episodes. And it also kind of works if you have the filing fees are really high. So it makes a difference. And in some countries, the filing fees are really high, so it could make a difference. So what are the results of this? Do they have any effects on how many women is going to get elected? And that's very difficult with these, especially these initiatives when you are equipping women with more money to win a candidacy and also to get elected. And as you can see in 2004, there was no such initiative. And in Malawi, there was 40% of the members of the parliament that got elected. And then you had this 50-50 campaign where you gave women money and you sponsored their campaign, they bought airtime, and they had this tremendous campaign. And then we could see that there was an increase of women who actually got elected into parliament with 22% of the parliament. So there was an increase point of actually 8%, up to 8%. And we could also see that there was a substantial increase in the number of women candidates that ran in that election. And so that we did this campaign in 2014, it wasn't really the same. They did some changes. But still, then at that time, there was a lot of, the political context was really different. And we can see that at that time, women were not so efficient in winning any political, winning that many seats in the national parliament. So there was a reduction again, and then people started to think, oh, but maybe this initiative didn't work. Maybe actually giving funding for women doesn't work. And what we are saying is that maybe it does help, but we can't really, such an incentive and such a scheme cannot produce wonders. And at least if they are implemented, like they had been in Malawi, there will be more, it will depend on the political context, how efficient it's going to be from election to elections. So it's not that you have reached a certain benchmark and then you think you're going to stay there. It's also going to be reductions with these kinds of initiatives. So the challenges then is that, is it sufficient to make a difference? And also, should you give early seats for women, or should you just give it to candidates? And the candidates, that they're actually running in that election. The question is then, maybe the women who are running as candidates in those elections are the same that would be able to run anyhow, and that you are not actually giving an incentive for other women to run. And there is also the problem of reinforcing the problem of money in politics, that you have this. So what you say is that, okay, we accept that money is important, so now we're just going to help women of playing that game. We're going to make them more professional in doing that game, but we're not fighting what might be the biggest problem, and that is that it's so costly to run in an election. And then it's also, of course, the sustainability of the campaigns. How can you sustain them? You can sustain them with government money. But of course, in other parts of the world, you've also, like in the United States, where you have the Emily list and the 50-50 campaigns for Parliament in the UK and Ireland, you also have this now that everybody can participate. Everybody can go there, buy a T-shirt or something, and then you donate money to these campaigns, and then these campaigns, they work for women in politics. So it's not dependent on government money anymore or donor money, but they actually have money that everybody can participate and do something. So let me just start off with the conclusion then. So what are we actually changing anything? Are we changing behavior? Are we able to do anything, transform the society and the relationship between the genders by having these incentives, funding incentives in politics? Pippa Norris and Mona-Lena Crook and others, they have talked about, used the market equilibrium as an example for politics. And they would say that if there is no distortion in the market or in politics, 52% of women will be elected into offices, because women is 52% of the population in most countries. So what they do with these initiatives that I've talked about today is that they are targeting different kinds of the market model. So sanction of political parties, sanctioning policies, they are saying that political parties, they have to change the demand for women. If you are not it's kind of targeting the demand. So they are saying that parties have to win to find women. You have to go out there and find women. If you don't go out there and find women, you will not get funding. So they are trying to do something in the political scene, in the political recruitment process, with actually the demand for women. So the other kinds of initiatives, the candidate cost relief, is trying to do something about the supply for women. So they're trying to kind of trigger women to be more ambitious when it comes to political careers, and saying that women can run, you can win, and we're going to make sure that we are equipping you with some kind of resources, cost or whatever, that actually are encouraging you to become politician. So this is triggering the supply mechanism of the market, making more women wanting to run. And as this we can see when we're talking about gender mainstreaming and actually wanting actions to change. The question is then, which of these mechanisms are most effective? Is it most effective to start with the political parties and say that you have to change, you have to actually go out there and ask for more women? Or is it more effectively to actually go there and tell women, no, hey, you have to bring up your ambition, you have to start running for political parties, and we're going to help you. And even with the reduction funds, you know, if it's not that much, it could kind of help if you want to have a political career to know that at some point at least, you know that you don't, some of the costs you don't have to cover. But it's still kind of, I think we need to address both at the same time. So these kind of mechanisms then, could we see them as a supplement or alternative to gender quotas? We know gender quotas, they have and had an immense impact in the countries where they work and they are implemented. And we have seen a really fast track in countries like Rwanda, Uganda, and France, where they have had these gender quotas, and it's really effective, and they have increased the number of women in politics really fast. But what we have also seen that in some countries, especially countries where you have the first past the post electoral system, quotas are really difficult to get adopted. And in the UK and in the US, for instance, it's very, and Malawi and a lot of other countries, it's really politically difficult to have gender quotas adopted. And so, at least gender electoral financing, especially if you're targeting women directly, or also these other targets, can actually be on a slow track that we can see a change, but you would also expect there to be a backlash, and that sometimes you will be effective and sometimes such campaigns will not be. And so what you can see that in the countries where you have both, especially if you have gender quotas, and then you're backing this up with the mechanism of funding, you can really see that this has an impact. So if you have a gender quota, you can say, and if you don't apply with the gender quota, you will have a cut in your funding. You will not have funding. But of course, and as I will conclude, in order to actually get at this stage where we can use such mechanisms as especially public funding for parties as a way to, to make parties change their behavior and actually go there and adopt more women on their list, we do need to have more transparent rules when it comes to funding parties and politics. So we would have to have rules that work, and we would also have to have and sanctions against parties and trying to do something with corruption in politics, so that it's possible that actually these laws will have an effect. So that's what I'm concluding. So I'm saying thank you and have a nice day and promote transparent public funding of elections.
Thank you, Professor, for your excellent speech on gendered electoral financing in democratic and democratizing states, which has made this conference even more interesting with a perspective that warrants serious research and studies. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to call our guest of honor, Her Excellency H.E. Sitzel Blekken, Ambassador of Norway, to deliver her speech.
Honorable Vice Chancellor, Chief Guest, Honorable State Minister, distinguished professors, faculty members, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. It's my pleasure to be part of the inauguration ceremony of this international conference on gender mainstreaming in politics, administration and development, jointly organized by the University of Bergen in Norway and the North-South University. And this gender mainstreaming and gender equality is a subject that is very close to my heart. So I'll just wait until you're close. Yeah. Please. Okay, thank you. The cooperation between these two universities has been ongoing for almost a decade. And I'm pleased to see that this also includes a regional perspective with participating universities in Sri Lanka and Nepal. The continuity of the collaborative efforts also demonstrates the commitment of Norwegian assistance for higher education and research in Bangladesh and in other South Asian countries. In this respect, the ownership and sincerity on part of North-South University towards human resource development is highly commendable. Ladies and gentlemen, that more than 80 abstracts have been submitted to this conference clearly shows the enthusiasm and interest in the subject matter. I sincerely thank the authors, scholars, researchers for their participation and contribution in this conference. I would also like to congratulate the keynote speaker, Professor Ragnhild Muriås, for her thought-provoking and insightful keynote speech. She points to the importance of women in politics. I would like to broaden this a little bit and say a little bit about, why is gender equality important? Firstly, it's important because we are all equal human beings. We should all have equal rights. And we need to work for that, because what we see, for instance, with this report from the World Economic Forum about closing the gender gap, Bangladesh is doing quite good. It's moving up, and it's doing much better than the other South Asian countries. But still, if you look into the facts and figures, Bangladesh is doing good when it comes to political participation of women at the top level. If we go and have a look, as we heard about politics here, women at the local level, the situation is different. So that is one area where we need to increase effort. And also, we know that women are 50 to 52% of the population, which means we should participate equally in all areas of society. Women's participation in economy contributes a lot to the economic development of the country. If Bangladesh should be able to reach the goal of being a middle-income country by 2021, which is definitely possible, but that need inclusion of women much more also in the formal labor market. And as we have heard, women in politics, because That is where decisions are made. And we have heard, and we also know, as from David Cameron, about how if we only have men to discuss and take political decisions, they would not take the same decisions as if we have men and women participating together in political decisions. That's why it's also so important to have women included in politics. I would like to say a little bit also on the Norway and our focus on gender equality and women's empowerment. Investing in girls and women is one of the prerequisites for economic growth and sustainable development. This is especially important when it comes to education and health. When women and girls are empowered, educated, and equipped to contribute to society, their families, communities, and countries get stronger, more stable, and more prosperous. Therefore, we need to focus on promoting gender equality and advancing the status of women and girls. We must ensure full participation of women and girls in political, economic, and social lives. And in this program, with the cooperation between the universities, focusing on public administration, participants from the different countries are, I think, mainly civil servants from Bangladesh. There are more academics from Sri Lanka, and there are NGO representatives from Nepal. This is a good group together because it brings in different perspectives, but they all have important roles to play to ensure gender mainstreaming in public policy. So the more you are equipped, the more knowledge you have, the better you will be able to assist in mainstreaming women in politics, in economics, in social life. In light of the conference theme, let me also share some of Norway's experiences made on the road towards greater gender equality and mainstreaming. In Norway, progress towards gender equality and rights and equal participation by women and men in work, politics, and society has taken many years, and it has been a long struggle by activists, particularly women activists. And today we have achieved a lot, but even in Norway there remains many challenges. Violence against women continues to be a concern, and there are still inequalities in the economic field, and we still need to overcome discriminatory attitude in the society. However, Norwegian legislation secures gender balance, for instance, in boards of public limited companies. Gender representation law requires that both men and women shall be represented on company boards by 30%. We have a maternal leave system, but we also have a paternal leave quota. In the political area, we have about 40% members in the Storting, the Norwegian Parliament. This has not come about because we have had financial support systems, as was just discussed. And it has not really come about as a quota system, but it came very much because women in the 70s went together and stood together to increase the number of women in politics, particularly in local politics. And it's also has been women who have created this pressure in the political parties so that the parties, when they nominate candidates for the election, they would have to have a gender balance. There's always big debates if one of the major parties would have 2 men at the top of the list. That's not acceptable. We need to have, this balance, men and women. And also in the government, when we have a new government, gender balance is always one of the issues that is discussed about how to find the best ministers. We will also always be gender balanced, more or less, an equal number of men and women. I would also like to mention that boys and men do play a crucial role in reaching gender equality and rights, and we need to work together for a common purpose. This is true in a Norwegian as well as a Bangladeshi context. We are part of the same society. We need to work together rather than fighting each other. And to make sure that we all have our rights, men need to be mobilized, and they need to know that we should work together. They need to know what are the challenges, and to allow the women to participate, we need also to involve the men. Bangladesh has made significant progress in many areas, as mentioned, for instance, by this Gender Equality Gap Index. And women have been very much part of this process, both as drivers, as beneficiaries. But a lot remains to be done to integrate the gender equality perspective into all policy areas. Girls and women still face discrimination in most areas, at home, at school, at work, in healthcare, and in politics and culture. Violence against women is a major issue. The same is child marriage and early pregnancy. these are areas that also you as civil servants, as academics, as NGO activists should address. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by giving my sincere thanks to the organizers for inviting me here today. I hope you all will have a fruitful 2 days and wish the conference a grand success. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency Ambassador, for giving us your valuable insights. Now, may I please request our guest of honor, Professor Sudha Tripathi, Rector, Tribhuvan University, Nepal, to kindly deliver a speech for us.
Namaste, good morning. Respected Chair, Chief Guest, Honorable Minister, Keynote Speaker, Professor Luis Marias, all the dignitaries in the dais, and all the dignitaries in this program, and all the participants. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a good honor and privilege for me to be here today as a guest of honor at this international conference on gender mainstreaming in politics, administration, and development in South Asia and beyond. I would especially like to thank the entire organizers team for this honor. The Central Department of Public Administration, Tribhuvan University, is a partner institution of Master in Public Policy and Governance program at North-South University, Dhaka, Bangladesh, along with University of Paradia, Bergen, Norway. I am immensely pleased to address this conference as a member of partner university too. Ladies and gentlemen, since long, the discourse of gender equity and social inclusion has been intertwined with social justice, human development, and modernity. A great deal of literature has been written, discussion sessions have been conducted, and movements have been observed in the modern world till now, but the issue has not been solved, but even more convert into intricacies regarding gender differences and varied gender roles have been revealed to the surface as the discussion went more intensive. The present world is facing challenges in making a just society from multi-layered gender discrimination, which has extended far beyond from discrimination between male and female to sexual minorities. And present-day society is not free from grievance and complaints regarding justice and equality. But still the major controversies in this regard are the gap between the social and gender roles of men and women. Still gender equality is an issue, still we are striving for it, and still here is a long way to go. Aiming at the goal of gender equality, the 1985 Third World Conference on Women in Nairobi, Kenya, which proposed the concept of gender mainstreaming for the first time in the human story, and the 1995 Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing, China, formally featured and documented it. These all activities are the milestones toward the goal we are marching ahead, and I hope that the continuous and dedicated attempts will bring us the goal closer. In most of the countries in the modern world has documented in their law that all men and women bear equal legal status, but in practice the scenario is quite appalling. Women, unlike to their male counterparts, are not able to live their life with full caliber in many countries. Women are deprived from the status of decision-making, and their roles are kept limited to the household duties. We, people of South Asia, have observed phenomenal participation of women leadership in the politics. But in Sri Lanka or India, Nepal, Pakistan or Bangladesh or any other South Asian country, we may have a pretty good list of women either being head of the state or head of the government or the member of cabinet, but this can't be taken as the general picture of South Asian women. These are the rarest cases and can be taken as the accidental cases in the social structure of our region. As I myself is a woman and I belong to a society that still keeps suppressing women's voice for freedom under the age-old burdens of patriarchal mindset. We have recently turned into a federal Republican state that is supposed to be more inclusive, more participatory, and more just. 51% of the total population of Nepal is women. Obviously, this clear majority of women population deserves proportional participation in every facet of public life. Nepal Interim Constitution 2006 and Constitution of Nepal 2015 ensure women's participation in politics, administration, development, and education. This has brought some visible changes in the condition of women, and the obligatory traditional roles are seen to be shadowed by more powerful social activism and participation. But still the condition is not satisfactory. In the legislative parliament, women's participation is limited to 29.8% in comparison of 70.2% men participation. Similarly, 29.8% of local government members and 36% of total civil servants are women. When we see women's participation in university teaching, we encounter that only 7% of total teachers are women, where 47% total university students are women. Ladies and gentlemen, Nepal is a country with medium human development index, and here also women's condition is as expected. ADI of male in Nepal is 0.582 and the same of women is 0.538. Similarly, fewer women are literate in Nepal in comparison of men. According to the last census in 2011, men's literacy was counted 76% and women's literacy was 57.8%. When we talk about the employment, only 21.7% of total employed population are women. But it does not mean that the women who are marked unemployed here sit ideally at their homes or they have pretty leisure. They are obliged to perform round-the-clock household duty, or in other words, they are on unpaid jobs. Ladies and gentlemen, now let me throw some light upon the efforts on gender mainstreaming in Nepal. In our country, too, women have been regarded development beneficiaries since we became the UN member in 1956. Since then, there has been active participation from Nepal in various international forums of women concerns. Since the beginning of the sixth plan, 1980 to 85, Nepal has adopted a gender development perspective in national development activities with a focus on women for their socio-economic development. Our women development programs were incorporated to implement the provisions included in the Declaration the International Women Year 1975. I must admit the fact that Dwarika Devi Thakurani of Nepal was the first ever lady minister in South Asia who joined the cabinet in 1960. But we had to wait for another 4 decades to get the first woman deputy prime minister as Shailaja Acharya in 1998. After the 2006 democratic movements, we have observed some visible changes in this concern. In the first Constituent Assembly, there was 33% women participation. However, it dropped to 29.8% in the second CA and the transformed parliament. I must admit the fact that it is more than Asian and old average, and only Nordic countries where women participation of women in the parliament is 41.1% are above us in this regard. Last 2 years have brought very positive news in this concern. In 2015, we got the first woman president, Vidya Devi Bhandari, and the first woman speaker, Onsari Gharti Magar. In 2016, Sushila Karki was appointed as the Chief Justice. According to a recent data, 3.03% of total special class gadget officers are women. This proportion is 3.04% in the first class, 4.28% of second class, and 7.62% in the third class level. It is a positive sign that things are gradually improving. Nepal Army has started recruiting women in their infantry squad, and women are coming out of the predefined restrictions of their household duties. Despite this all, still there is a long way to go, and we all are here with the very concerns. I hope this conference will propose some important agenda on gender mainstreaming, and for a just and a bright future, this conference will prove a milestone. I further wish that keynote speaker, other speakers, and paper presenters from the various places in the world will theorize the present-day gender issues with newer insights and bring newer approaches to gender mainstreaming. I wish for the grand success of this conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, for your enlightening speech. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now take the privilege to request our guest of honor for the program, Mr. Mohammad Shahjahan, Chairman, Board of Trustees, North-South University, to kindly deliver his speech.
Thank you. Honorable Vice Chancellor, the session chair of this conference, Chief Guest, Honorable State Minister, Her Excellency the Ambassador of Norway, very distinguished keynote speaker, our honorable guest from Nepal, the professor, the rector, and our distinguished professor visiting us from University of Bargain, distinguished researchers, the participants from different countries, and very importantly, the students of PPG and MPPG programs. Good morning and very good welcome to all of you. I am very pleased to see that this international conference has been focused on a very important issue, which is a need of the time for all the countries. Gender mainstreaming. Men are already in the mainstream. So that was the submission by the Nepalese rector. She was explaining the situation in Nepal. But in Bangladesh, we are in much better condition in women streaming in the society, I should say, the gender streaming in society. Well, women empowering is what I should say is a great demand now in all over the countries in the world. Maybe Bangladesh has become more advanced, maybe in a pioneering role, but the others are following. But still, in Bangladesh, we are far behind in this regard. In politics, well, in the parliament, we have 30 reserved seats. So as the keynote speaker said this, in election, getting a ticket, that cost and also not secure. And also the direct participation of the female members in the parliament elections That has become a very difficult process also. But we welcome, and as per the Election Commission agenda and their act, that the total participation of the women in Bangladesh in all affairs, particularly in politics, has to be increased by 33%. And they are trying to implement, but it is very difficult that the women are also not that free to come, and they also hesitate. But I understand with the development of education, increasing of educated people in the country, like other countries of the world, more people will come, more women candidates will come in politics also. Actually, this is a technical session. The researcher will talk. I am not an academician or a researcher. On behalf of the North-South University Board of Trustees, I welcome you all, and we are really grateful for your participation. The PPG program and MPPG program in North-South University is doing a very commendable job. The civil servants participating here as a training program, particularly from Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, and other countries, is very encouraging. We are grateful to the Norwegian government for their continuous support and financing in the research. And the Bergen University of Norway with North-South University, the joint research program and their funding is really unique. And they are doing this every year, giving us money for continuation of these research programs. We are really grateful to the Bergen universities and the Norwegian government. Dear distinguished guests, you have long discussions in different sessions. I hope that this international conference will be a fruitful one and will give a good resolution about the gender streaming. With these few words, giving you thanks and welcoming to participate for the whole day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, respected Chairman, Board of Trustees, North-South University. It is your support and inspiration that motivates us to organize these seminars and conferences. Today, we have amongst us an extraordinary personality who is a pride for our country. She is none other than the chief guest for the program, Ms. Ismat Ara Sadiq, MP. Ms. Ismat Ara Sadiq got directly involved in national politics with her late husband in the year 1992. She is indeed a torchbearer for all the women who aspires to be involved in the country's political scenario. She established the Women Front of Keshapur Awami League in the year 1996 and dedicated herself in making it a well-organized party there. And since then, she has been working as #1 member of the executive committee of the organization. Ms. Ismat Ara Sadiq successfully carried out responsibilities as a member of Bangladesh Women Welfare Council for a period of 2009 to 2013. And presently, she is engaged as the president of Shathi Samaj Kulyan Sangstha, a charitable organization involved mainly in extending free medical treatment to students along with support of different types, including providing them with free uniform and academic materials. With much honor, I would now request the chief guest, Ms. Ismat Ara Sadiq, MP, Honorable Minister of State, Ministry of Public Administration, Government of Bangladesh, to deliver a speech for us.
Respected Chairperson, Professor Atiq Islam, Convener of this international conference, Dr. Ishtiaq Jamil, University of Bergen, Norway, Today's keynote presenter, Professor Reinhild Louise Maria, University of Bergen, Norway, Her Excellency Sitzel Blaken, Ambassador of Norway, Guest of Honor, Professor Sudha Tripathi, Rector, Tribhuvan University, Nepal, Mr. Mohammad Shah Jahan, Chairman, Board of Trustees, NSU, distinguished faculty members of North-South University, distinguished authors and paper presenters from Bangladesh and abroad, distinguished guests and my dear students, Assalamu alaikum, and very good morning. I am indeed very delighted to be present here in this auspicious gathering. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this conference for inviting me here. Father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who dreamt of free the people of this land from political and economic restraints and establish equality for all for building a prosperous and happy Sonar Bangla. Bangabandhu first started empowering women by rehabilitating those who were abused during the War of Independence in 1971. With a view to establish a society with enhanced status of women with equal rights in all spheres of the state and of public life, constitutional obligation was made under Article 28, which states that the state shall not discriminate against any citizen on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, and place of birth. The government of Bangabandhu played an effective role from the early 70s in the international arena. Bangladesh actively participated in the First World Women Congress in Mexico in 1975. The base of the present level of women development in Bangladesh was formed with this initiative. Since then, for over 40 years, Bangladesh participated in all international initiatives in the matter of women development by signing international charters and documents. Ladies and gentlemen, the government led by Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is strongly committed to ensure women development in all arenas of the society. Her vision 2021 and 2041 created a roadmap for transforming Bangladesh into a middle and high income level respectively. The government is working diligently for attaining the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG, for ensuring gender equality and empowering women. As a matter of fact, Bangladesh has already substantially achieved the goal 3 of MDGs, as it has ensured gender parity in primary and secondary education, along with other success of the MDGs. As evidence of gender mainstreaming, the government has undertaken initiatives such as gender-responsive budgeting, political, administrative, economic empowerment of women, life skill training and development of women, education and health, poverty alleviation, social security and social empowerment, formulation of acts and policies, rehabilitation, and providing legal aids to victims of gender violence. In this backdrop, the 7th five-year plan starts from 2016 to 2020 of the government of Bangladesh, brings to the table women's engagement in political and economic activities as a key driver of transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, may I take this opportunity to give you some information from which you might understand where we are now in terms of women empowerment. In the public sector, we have 27.37, almost 28% women employees. In the judiciary, out of 83 judges of High Court Division, 6 are women. 24 are working in the level of district judges. 28 are working in the level of additional district judges. 92 are working as joint district judges, and 244 are working as senior assistant judges. In civil service, out of 79 secretaries of the government, 12 are women. There are 72 additional secretaries, 92 joint secretaries, 260 deputy secretaries now working in the government offices. Among the deputy commissioners, 6 are women. 118 women are working as EONO, and we have at least one proud divisional commissioner who is a woman. In the foreign service, out of 311 officials, 67 are women, of whom 1 is additional secretary, 7 ambassadors, 11 director generals, and 9 directors. In Bangladesh Police, we have 263 women officers, of whom 2 are in the rank of Deputy Inspector General, 1 additional DIG, 29 police superintendent, 90 additional SP, 129 assistant police superintendent. In Bangladesh Army, we have 1,218 female officers, of whom 5 are brigadier general, 13 colonel, 63 lieutenant colonel, 610 major, 306 captain, and 221 lieutenant. In Bangladesh Navy, 94 female officers are working, of whom 7 commander, 39 lieutenant commander, 22 lieutenant, and 26 sub-lieutenant. In Bangladesh Air Force, 160 female officers are working, for whom 84 squadron leader, 42 flight lieutenant, 34 flight officers. Now let me inform you about how many are joining in the civil service every year. It is increasing every year. Now I don't have the data to say something here. So the first National Women Development Policy the government has is in 1997, provided a broad spectrum of issues that need to be addressed for ensuring parity for women. Later on, in 2011, policy was developed further. Complying the policy, appropriate policies and strategies have been incorporated in the national plan to increase women's participation in economic, political, and social spheres and do away with the existing barriers that blocks women's advancement. Given the proactive and affirmative action of the government, gains toward gender mainstreaming have become visible in all sectors. For example, share of female labor in total labor force has gone up to about 28% in 1915, comparing to 12% in 1989. Eliminating gender disparity in primary and secondary education. A mention-worthy progress has made in reducing the large gap between the male and female students. Dear participants, in the context of practice of parliamentary democracy, there has been a positive improvement in the role of women in the cabinet of the government and the parliament. In the current government, 4 female ministers and state ministers are working under the leadership of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, who herself is a woman. The number of women representation has jumped up from 2% in the 8th parliament to 6% in the 10th parliament. The current 10th parliament has 71 women parliamentarians, of whom 50 are on the reserve seats and 21 have been elected directly, bringing the percentage of women to 20%. And I feel proud to say that I am an elected parliamentary member. The appointment of the first female speaker is a significant step in the history of Bangladesh. Happily, in the local government bodies, the number of women representatives are also gradually increasing at the grassroots level with support of the laws and acts. I'm glad that a good number of scholars, both from Bangladesh and abroad, have coverage today to present their research papers, which would certainly add newer dimension and create momentum to the cause of removing gender inequality from all spheres of our lives. Ladies and gentlemen, gender equality and women's economic empowerment are considered both human rights imperatives and necessary condition for sustainable development. There are many more questions than answers when it comes to gender equality and women's economic empowerment. We need to identify and understand the unique potential opportunities and constraints in each local context and design approaches that work within existing social frameworks. One thing I may remind you that gender equality and women's economic empowerment require working with women and men as we have to consider the needs and interests of both women and men. In our country, we have many challenges. At the same time, we have many success stories. As per World Economic Forum report on the Global Gender Gap 2017, we have been ranked number 7 in terms of political empowerment of women, while among the South Asian countries, our position is number 1 for the last 3 consecutive years. At the top of the Global Gender Gap Index is Iceland. The country has closed nearly 88% of its gap. Bangladesh jumped 25 notches to 47th place in the Global Gender Gap Ranking 2017, closing the gender gap by 72%. Still, I think we have a long way to go. Nevertheless, since there is broad acceptance that women are integral to long-term and sustainable economic growth and development, and there are many initiatives going on, and we are open to listening and working with others for the development of the nation. We are hopeful that we would at least be able to make major changes for bringing equality and to prosper. I congratulate the keynote paper presenter, Professor Reinhold Louis Marias, distinguished authors, researchers, and organizers of the International Conference for their brilliant work. I wish this conference a great success and a warm welcome to all, especially to our foreign participants, of a pleasant and memorable stay in Bangladesh. Thanking you all. Khuda Hafiz, Joy Bangla.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for your inspiring speech. Last but not the least, I would like to request the respected Vice-Chancellor of North-South University, Professor Atiqul Islam, to deliver his speech as the chair of the session.
Good morning, everyone. Honorable Mrs. Ismat Sadiq, MP, State Minister of Public Administration, Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Norway, a great country, Sissel Blaken, Guest of Honor, Mr. Mohammad Shah Jahan, Chair of the Board of Trustees, who gives probably more time to NSU than his family and his businesses combined, which is a great thing. Professor Sudha Tripathi of our partner institution, Tribhuvan University of Nepal, Professor Reinhold Marias, the keynote speaker, who spoke so eloquently and with so much of substance. I think she is a profound kind of researcher. Thanks for your contributions, and I'm sure you'll be making contributions in the next few days. The joint conveners, Professor Ishtiaq Jamil, and our own Sheikh Tawfiq, Dean of the Faculty of SHSS, Professor Abdul Rob, other invited guests, delegates, my colleagues, MPPG students, ladies and gentlemen, greetings from North-South University, and welcome to North-South University, and welcome to this particular conference. It is very appropriate that we got our chief guests, we got our special guest, the Honorable Ambassador of Norway here, because no other country qualifies as much for gender mainstreaming than Norway. I remember watching a documentary where they showed the Norwegian soldiers, male and female, not only live in the same barrack, they sleep in the same rooms, 1 meter apart. So that speaks something about this stage they have reached in gender mainstreaming. I'm also grateful to our minister for giving us these facts about how many colonels and majors and lieutenants and above work in Bangladesh Army who are of the softer gender, but they are not soft in their duties, I'm sure, because I've seen women policemen always tougher than men policemen. That's my experience in Australia and in Bangladesh, so you got to be careful. North-South University is, I take pride that it's a highly engaged university. Our engagement is within the country with the government, with the industry, and with the professions. Our engagement with outside is through collaborative research and collaborative offering of courses and student and staff exchange. MPPG is probably the best showcase we have of both collaborative research and collaborative training. This is a great center which has the sincerest support from Tribhuvan University of Nepal, from Perjania University of Sri Lanka, and from the Royal University of Bhutan. And I thank all these countries, and I also thank, of course, Bergen University for its leadership role. I also have a soft corner for Bergen University because I visited Bergen University some years ago, where I was telling Her Excellency that I liked the Norwegian smoked salmon and almost got addicted to the reindeer meat. And I also ventured that it is easy to speak Norwegian. If you know a word in English, you just add an EN at the end of it. You got Norwegian, Grieg Holland is the Grieg Hall, really, of concert. Viglands Parken is a park. Park becomes park and hall becomes Holland. So if I follow that policy, it will be very easy to speak Norwegian, or at least I'll say confidently whether they laugh or not. That's a different thing. Anyway, it's good to see that so many serious scholars have assembled here to present their ideas, to get the ideas scrutinized, verified, and at the end of it, the whole world is going to benefit in the form of referee journal articles, in the form of books, in the form of monographs, and everyone will go back much better informed, more learned than they have come here. We have 3 days of excellent program chalked out, and I'm sure that there will be lots of sparks, there will be lots of smoke and fire, and at the end of it, we will see things better. Once again, those who are overseas from other countries, I wish you a very enjoyable stay in Bangladesh, sample our food, see our places of interest. If you can, extend your stay by a day or two, and see how friendly the people are. It's a good country. It's a fantastic country, really. People are good. Environment is good. The weather, particularly, we ordered good weather from upstairs for you. So you probably will have unbroken 3 or 4 days of sunshine. It's not too hot by our standards. It's not cold enough by Norwegian standards, but in between it's okay. I wish the conference a grand success, and I wish you all have a productive, enjoyable time here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for a very encouraging and highly motivating speech. So we are at the end of this inaugural session, but before end, I just want to share one encouraging information. As we say that we are live streaming, we are already on live streaming, and till now, there are 7,200 views globally, 673 comments, and 23 shared. At least half an hour ago, I'm sure within this half an hour more has been added. So more people are probably watching than in this room. So which is good that globally and regionally people probably having more interest on this issue. and we are sure that even in the parallel sessions and other sessions also, people from outside, they will have the chance to get into it. So by this, we are concluding here, and we have a very quick and small tea break before starting the real job, the technical session. So the tea is being served at Cafeteria 2 downstairs, so all are invited to join us in the tea session there. So please, thank you very much.